extend a hearty welcome to all our teachers, to all the participants who have joined us for this webinar today. The title of the webinar is The New Education Policy, a Pedagogical Revolution. Education is fundamental for achieving the full human potential, developing an equitable and just society, and promoting the national development. The National Education Policy 2020 is the first education policy of the 21st century. The policy envisions an educational system which is rooted in the Indian ethos, aimed at transforming India to a global knowledge superpower. The policy envisages that the curriculum and pedagogy of our institutions must develop among the students a deep sense of respect towards the constitutional values and the fundamental duties. The vision of the policy is to instill among the learners a deep sense of pride in being Indian, not only in thought, but also in spirit, intellect, and deeds. It supports commitment to human rights, sustainable development, and global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. Friends, you all know that India talks about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The webinar is being organized today, that is the 5th of September. This is a very auspicious day, Teachers' Day. The light of the world, the beacon in the dark, and the hope that gives us strength to survive is none other than a teacher. We convey our wishes to all the teachers for their impeccable contributions in shaping the future of our nation. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I must inform you all that the keynote address today in this webinar is going to be delivered by the Director CEC, Professor Nadda. And the speakers of this webinar include Professor Ashok Ogra, Professor KG Suresh, and Professor Anubhuti Yadav. I would now request our Joint Director CEC, Dr. Sunil Mehru, to please give the welcome address.
Namaskar friends. It is my proud privilege to welcome our distinguished chief guest and mentor, Honorable Professor J.B. Nadda sir, Director CEC. It also an honor for me to welcome eminent speakers, Professor Ashok Ogra, Professor K.G. Suresh, and Professor Anubhuti Yadav, and most importantly, participating academicians. It is true pleasure for me to welcome you all on behalf of Honorable Director of CEC, Professor J.B. Nadda sir. On this beautiful occasion, let us take the opportunity to convey our wishes to all our teachers who have given impeccable contribution in shaping us. We are all online today to celebrate this joyful day for our gurus, to thank them and to salute them for their priceless contribution towards nation building. The day is celebrated to commemorate the birth anniversary of Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. The auspicious occasion calls for a grand celebration and to express gratitude and appreciation for our gurus. The Consortium for Educational Communication is holding a webinar on the National Education Policy, a Pedagogical Revolution. The National Education Policy is a much needed guiding light to nurture our demographic potential as our young nation strides towards development and advancing our capabilities. It becomes imperative to take inspiration from our ancient heritage and cultural values to transform the existing status quo with a modern and futuristic approach. The pandemic situation persuades for enormous pedagogical shift from traditional to digital, offline to online, textbooks to e-books, class content to e-content, and so on. But the key element of teacher-learner interaction will remain unchanged, whether it is offline or online. At CEC, we worked on a war footing to enable our learners and teachers to take up this unique challenge and emerge victoriously. Being Asia's largest repository of digital educational content, CEC is committed to provide uninterrupted access for teaching and learning opportunities. With the introduction of National Education Policy 2020, digital mode of education dissemination has gathered momentum, and CEC is ready to become a part of this educational revolution as a prospective virtual university. The National Education Policy 2020 is ambitious and futuristic. However, there is a need to create awareness about it amongst teachers, students, officials, and other stakeholders in the higher education system. This webinar holds the vision of engaging the academic fraternity in a meaningful assignment, along with spreading awareness which will contribute towards the intellectual wealth of the nation. I welcome you all once again, and thanks to my boss, Professor J.B. Nadda sir, for providing me the opportunity to hold such meaningful webinar. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Dr. Mehru, for this welcome address. For all our participants who have joined in, I would like to inform you all that, as you are aware, that the Consortium for Educational Communication is an inter-university center of the University Grants Commission, and it has been contributing to the dissemination of the educational content through the use of various information communication technologies under the able leadership of Professor Jagat Bhushan Nadda, who is the director of CEC. Friends, Professor Nadda is an accomplished academician, an administrator, and a scholar. He has the distinction of being appointed professor in management at the young age, I must say, of 37, and since then has worked as a faculty in 8 different universities and institutions of repute throughout the country. Professor Nadda has keen interest in the areas of organization behavior and organization development. His illustrious career as a dedicated teacher and a professional has been exemplary. I would now invite Professor J.B. Nadda ji for the keynote address.
Namaskar. Friends, educating human progeny has always been a priority for human race. Education not only equips individuals with knowledge, skills and practices, but also develops values and culture that binds the nation together and decides the course of our civilization. No wonder nations therefore chart different educational trajectories and contours as per their own vision, priorities and aspirations. The new education policy 2020 is a reflection of just that. It is time to rejoice that India is now ready with the education policy that matches its capacity and meets its aspirations of leading the world in 21st century as Vishwaguru, global superpower. While the new education policy 2020 is a huge document that has revamped a whole lot of educational policies, some of the issues that have touched me most are as follows. The first is the change in philosophy. The laudable New Education Policy 2020 has replaced a 34-year-old national policy on education 1986, which was briefly amended in 1992. Prior to the present education policy, all education policies seem to bear the stamp of Macaulay's agenda and philosophy. Macaulay in 1835 drafted the Minute on Indian education in colonial India. His popular phrase of producing brown clerks guided the direction of education policy. New Education Policy 2020, in contrast, attempts to decolonize minds and offers innovative and future compatible learning ecosystem in the country. It has now placed a lot of significance on individuals' intellectual development and capacity building in local educational context. The second issue is regarding consultation with stakeholders. What is most commendable of this document is that it has been prepared after nationwide consultation with all its stakeholders. No wonder it addresses the anomalies and inadequacies of previous education policies in the context of requirements, challenges, and aspirations of contemporary life and society. India's higher education sector, one of the largest in the world and comprising of more than 50,000 institutions, is very complex owing to certain unique situations. The federal structure of the country, its diverse socio-cultural, linguistic and ethnic groups, diverse demographics with the different levels of reach and access to education makes the drafting of education policy very complex, collaborative and imaginative task. The new education policy seems to be a thorough and assimilative document having considered all these factors. The third is administration and financial autonomy. The education policy clearly spells out measures for development of educational institutions. It addresses the issues like administrative and financial autonomy, transparent system, and approvals and inspections, etc. In this context, and to further oversee the higher education in the country, the recommendations of establishment of Higher Education Commission of India is a welcome move. Likewise, the school education has been completely transformed to centrally place the real learning. The policy aims to deburden young kids with heavy school bags and rote-oriented pedagogy, which has been hitherto, unfortunately, privileging only memorizing abilities of the learners. Thus, boards exams performance became the only pinnacle and hope for both students and parents, failing which students generally stood no chances of blooming. Thus, originality and critical thinking were sacrificed on the altar of marks and other visible achievements. The new education policy seeks to correct this vision by de-emphasizing such tangential and less effective evaluation of students' achievement. The policy recommends a new range of assessment tools that would be aligned with the learning outcomes, capabilities, and dispositions as specified for each subject of a given class. It also recommends the designing of curricula in holistic, integrated, enjoyable, and engaging manner. The fourth issue is education in mother tongue. Friends, no logic or argument can undermine the importance and advantage of learning in mother tongue. Mother tongue cajoles emotions, understanding, and learning. This policy, for the first time ever, recommends learning in mother tongue specially and desirably till standard 8. It thus provides seamless access to education without any linguistic barrier. Moreover, the policy's emphasis on mother tongue in educational delivery embraces unity in diversity. This has been aptly expressed by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji when he says languages of India will progress and develop further due to the changes brought in the education policy. This will not only enhance India's knowledge but will also thread its unity. It would be pertinent to mention that Consortium for Educational Communication, an inter-university center of University Grants Commission and popularly known as CEC, a pioneer in digital education in the country, would soon make available higher educational content in 8 different regional languages. Friends, another significant milestone of the policy is to treat humans as humans and thinkers and not merely as resources. This paradigm shift in the new education policy looks forward to all-round development of humans. Emphasis has therefore been laid on interdisciplinary approach in education and provides holistic education with flexible curricula and creative combination of subjects. Much in line, it also addresses the long neglected problem of school and college dropouts on account of various compulsions. The new policy, with the provisions of lateral entry and exit in undergraduate programs, shall bring dropouts and out-of-school learners into the fold. Also, the architects of the policy deserve huge applause to break away from the shackles of colonial mindset and propose to promote the study of classical languages, including Sanskrit. This shall not only enrich students with linguistic skills, but shall also connect them to their cultural heritage. Equally welcoming is the introduction of much ignored Indian knowledge systems to the students, such as tribal knowledge, indigenous and traditional ways of learning, tribal ethno-medical practices, forest management, traditional organic crop cultivation, natural farming, etc. Therefore, sets to liberal and redeem students from pitfalls of conventional rigid classification of subject streams and offers an opportunity to learn what they want to learn. Yet another policy talks about is digital education. Digital education or e-learning has earned well-deserved emphasis in the policy. It proclaims to promote adoption and integration of technology to improve multiple aspects of education. In this context, the policy recommends the setting up of an autonomous body National Educational Technology Forum to provide a platform for the free exchange of ideas on the use of technology to enhance learning, assessment, planning, administration, and so on. It therefore plays a greater role in democratization of education in the country and shall enhance the gross enrollment ratio. Further, the policy suggests use of disruptive technology like artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality in the context of content creation, digital repository and dissemination. In this context, Consortium for Educational Communication, the largest repository and broadcaster of educational content in the country, is a big contributor to digital education. With its 10 dedicated educational channels under Swayam Prabha bouquet, among other things, it works actively to promote e-learning environment in the country. To conclude, friends, the National Education Policy, New Education Policy 2020 has come out as a relevant, fundamental and radically different policy document. It seeks to redefine the Indian education system in entirety. The policy has outdone itself in reimagining the education in the country, where ambitions, technology, humans and future meet together. The new education policy marks a paradigm shift in education delivery and institutions with more focus on holistic and multidisciplinary education. With curriculum, pedagogy, continuous assessment, and student support recognized as the pillars of quality education, the policy provides a clear path to those goals. In the times dominated by indigenous and global challenges, the policy clearly prioritizes rootedness and pride in India and its rich, diverse, ancient and modern culture and knowledge systems and traditions. Friends, the roadmap is all set to reclaim, re-articulate and restructure the Bharatiya self and contribute towards creating a more human, equitable and self-reliant societal fabric. I am sure we would be able to resurrect the glory, excellence, expertise and knowledge of its legendary and world-renowned educational institutions of Takshila, Nalanda and Vikramshila. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nadda, for this deep insight into the National Education Policy 2020. Friends, let us all watch now a short film highlighting the activities, vision, and mission of CEC.
From ancient Bharat to modern India, education has always occupied a place of prominence in Indian culture and tradition. Nalanda, Taxila and Vikramshila, the world-famous centers for learning, were the epitome of such education and attracted students from the remotest corners of the planet. Ancient India has given the world wisdom, yoga, Ayurveda and classical art forms, and today CEC has stepped forth to build a digital learning environment to emulate the ancient Indian education system, to provide quality-enriched educational resources integrated with human values and culture on digital platforms to the remotest learners. CEC was established in the year 1993 as a pioneer of digital education in the country to address the issues related to higher education. CEC is the national coordinator for Swayam MOOCs and 11 Swayam Prabha DTH channels, with more than 1.5 crore views in the past 6 months, to address higher education needs through digital media and to take education to the remotest learner. CEC has its 21 educational multimedia research centers, or EMRCs, spread across the length and breadth of the country, with more than 500 trained workforce and state-of-the-art equipment and infrastructure. Besides owning the largest digital educational content repository in Asia, CEC has more than 16,000 enrichment videos spread across 74 subjects, approximately 24,000 e-courseware modules, over 19,000 short learning objects, 3,000 live and recorded lectures, 349 massive open online courses in undergraduate subjects on the Swayam platform. CEC has created e-courseware modules based on the UGC model curriculum, moving towards CBCS compliance, developed by Pan-India subject experts and validated and certified through a 2-stage peer review process. It is a complete learning package containing question banks with MCQs and assignments, providing instant assessment of learning outcome. It can be accessed free of cost. CEC has developed approximately 24,000 e-content courseware in 87 undergraduate subjects with over 4.6 lakh visits, covering 4 knowledge streams: art, language and literature, social sciences, natural and applied sciences, and management and other professional courses. CEC's YouTube channel has recorded a footfall of over 3.5 lakh subscribers, with more than 2.64 crore video views, equivalent to 62.4 years of watch time, with the top 5 viewing countries across the globe being India, Pakistan, USA, Nepal and UK. CEC's digital content can be integrated with traditional pedagogy through blended and flipped learning, short learning objects to teach concepts, portable e-content, video on demand through CEC web portal, subject-based content provided locally through LAM, MOOCs, massive open online courses providing knowledge and course credits, and DTA channels free to air across the country. CEC's undergraduate MOOCs are hosted and accredited by various educational institutions pan-India. India is the third largest higher education system in the world. However, our higher education system has its own share of challenges like low gross enrollment ratio or GER of 25.8% in higher education sector, scarcity of faculty, infrastructure and facilities, redundancy in teaching practices, various socio-economic and geographic barriers, high cost of higher education, learning habits and abilities, universities in production mode, and lack of opportunities to pursue interests. Here, CEC has the capacity to address these challenges by carrying out online content activities which include designing, development and dissemination of digital educational content, running of e-courses, and conducting proctored online examinations through National Testing Agency or the NTA. CEC issued with over 6,000 credit certificates in partnership with SWAYAM and 14 universities for SWAYAM MOOCs. Further, CEC has begun developing educational content in Hindi and 8 regional languages to increase the accessibility and reach of its online learning resources to the rural populace of India. Moreover, to create ICT-based learning environment in the country, CEC's Prakriti Documentary and Film Festival has gone international. The festival aims at creating awareness and sensitizing people about issues like environment, development and the human rights. The Swachh Bharat category has been added for the first time for the festival. This event received an overwhelming 197 entries from participants across the world. CEC organized EduToon and EduWrite competition 2019 on the theme of digital education. Also, every year, the educational video competition is organized by CEC, which converges students, filmmakers and experts from all over India. At CEC, we empower people with the power of knowledge.
It's our privilege to have with us the 3 key speakers for this webinar today. Professor Ashok Ogra is the advisor, APJ Institute, Delhi. Professor KG Suresh, Dean, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Dehradun. And Professor Anubhuti Yadav, who is the head, New Media, Indian Institute of Mass Communication. I welcome you all on behalf of CEC to being a part of this webinar. I would like to inform all our participants also that after these key speakers have addressed, we may have a question-answer session wherein the queries can be typed in the chat box and we can have the answers to your queries through our experts who have joined us today. Friends, Professor Ashok Ogra has a rich experience of over 35 years in print, television, and teaching. He has been a member of various selection committees for film festivals like the National Film Awards. Professor Ogra worked with the leading media brands, including the Discovery Channel and Doordarshan, and has also worked as Associate Professor at the reputed Film and Television Institute of Pune. After this brief introduction, I will just invite Professor Ogra to share his thoughts. and he is going to speak on the key observations of the National Education Policy 2020. Professor Ogra, please.
Thank you, Geetanjali. Good afternoon. Happy Teachers' Day. Thank you, Mrs. Sunil, Professor Maru, and of course, Professor Nadda for that very illuminating inaugural address. In a sense, you did capture the key points of the policy with passion, energy, and one has a lot of regard for you. You're rich in talent and intellect. Thank you so much. You made some of it, our tasks, rather easy. And I wouldn't mind imitating part of it, because imitation is also the sincerest form of learning. I also have deep regard for my friend, Professor Suresh, and also Anubhuti. So we look forward to listening to each. For at the end of the day, we learn from each other. The first thing that strikes me most important, and which perhaps captures the essence and the preamble of the NEP, as it were, is renaming the ministry from HRD to education. I think HRD reduced education to an economic unit, whereas education is much more than that. Education is liberating, education is empowering, education is a civilizational asset, education is a social unit, and also an economic asset. So I think that's the big thing, and that perhaps reflects the kind of deliberation that would have gone into framing this policy. So in that sense, I'm very happy, because education is to be seen as a long-term package beyond placement and packages that the industry offers. And as I said, it is empowering. I mean, it's not necessary all those who take education need to work, but that doesn't mean they need not get educated. Number two is, and Professor Nadda did refer to it, that it's rooted in Indian ethos, is that to Westerners, education is power. And we have also read it, education is power. But in the Indian philosophy, education is purifier. It purifies, it integrates. In fact, an Indian mind is a non-linear mind. And it reminds me of a concept of thali. When we eat from thali, we have different kind of vegetables, and each colliding with each other to see the attention, as if they're independent republics. And this is something very difficult for Western mind, because Western mind is the starter, the main course, and the end. They can't handle this. But that's what Indian mind is, this whole complexity that we bring to our lives, and therefore education. To begin with, he did refer to Thomas Macaulay. I'm sure he must be turning in his grave 70 years after independence, because he remained with us till the NEP came in 2020. And it's not very surprising that the first universities that were set up, Bombay, Madras, and Kolkata in 1857, were supposed to create, as he referred to as Babus, to serve the British interest. But along the way after independence, I think we somehow lost the plot. And as one writer, Amit Verma, so beautifully put it, our education policies have funded schools, not schooling. That's a fundamental difference. And this brings me to the fact that, without showing any disrespect to earlier Union Ministers of Education, some of them were excellent, but few of them perhaps construed, and they sounded like housing ministers, by allocating funds, acquiring land, inaugurating buildings, laying stone, the foundation stones, and they thought that was education. I think this NEP takes us beyond that. And no wonder that 90% of the salaries in the current situation goes towards these, the 90% of the budget goes towards salaries and the administrative costs. But this policy aims to broadly correct the inefficiencies. And it's not very easy to do that. policy can be as good as the state government wants, the other stakeholders want. It's a process, a collaborative venture. To me, it is the second tryst with India's destiny to be the knowledge power by 2040. And in that sense, I think the policy is both transformative and liberating. And therefore, the key takeaways from the NEP that I read, and it is a short document, and that's the other good thing. Unlike most of the government documents, which tend to be very voluminous, and hopefully, therefore, it won't find a space in the library to be archived. It would be read and implemented. Of course, it has to go to Parliament. The first of the sweeping changes, apart from what somebody mentioned, that increasing the enrollment ratio from 26 to 50. But the important thing I see is the multidisciplinary approach. Multiple exit options at the speed and convenience of the student. Student chooses the subject. In fact, Professor Suresh will know it, that in APJ Satya University, we have introduced the liberal arts philosophy the day we set up the university in 2010. Now, what exactly is this transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary? I think this policy goes beyond interdisciplinary, it goes into transdisciplinary. What exactly? And I had written this article, and I'm reminded of the Chinese proverb, which say that if you have headache, examine the feet. That the whole thing is body, it is one circular thing, and same is education. Now here is this, which I had written almost 15 years back for a magazine, what is liberal arts, and I had explained it, and I said, a king asked a great sage to teach him how to make sculptures of the gods. The sage replied, someone who does not know the laws of painting can never understand the laws of sculpture. Then said the king, be so kind, sage, to teach me the laws of painting. The sage replied, it's difficult to understand the laws of painting without understanding the technique of dancing. Be kind enough to teach me technique of dancing, asked the king. This is difficult to understand without a thorough knowledge of the principles of instrumental music. Please teach me the principles of instrumental music. But the sage said these cannot be learned without deep understanding of the art of vocal music. So this is the classic story of the unity of arts. So therefore, providing flexibility in choosing subjects, speed to learn students, in essence, it is student-centric. And therefore, it largely will address the falling behind syndrome, which is typical in India. I wouldn't go into PhD MPhil programs, that is so well known. It also ends the archaic and perhaps the only place in the world, or maybe there are South Asia, one or two other places, Bangladesh and Pakistan, ending affiliation of colleges, which had become both unwieldy and also inflexible, killing initiatives at the institution levels. The other important thing that I found remarkable is this ability to bridge the gap between the two compartments of vocational education and formal education. It integrates it seamlessly so beautifully because in a sense, you're doing the vocational from day one when you enter the school. The other is what Professor Natta says, decolonizing all of us, therefore Indianizing the education. It's very strange when I still go to England and you hear that Vasco da Gama discovered India. And when I was in Discovery and we had a program, in 1498, he landed at the port in Calicut. So I wondered that how can somebody discover India? It's not a small island in the Bay of Bengal somewhere down in Andamans. It stretches from the Himalayas to the Indian Ocean to the Bay of Bengal to the Arabian Sea. Discover, how can he discover India? Alexander came to India in 300 BC, 323 to be precise. Marco Polo came earlier. Bodhidharma went from India to China to spread Buddhism. This is the problem what we had of kind of trying to Indianize the education through the NEP. I mean, how many of us know of the great women rulers like Dida of Kashmir or Chola dynasty or Humphrey civilization? Nothing. Our knowledge stops at Chandragupta Maurya, Ashoka the Great, and Akbar the Great. That's it. So I think this emphasis on India, but I must make a distinction here that, and I'll come to that English as well, that we are not against Western ideas at all. And since we are celebrating Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan's birth anniversary, we must remember that he had tremendous knowledge of Indian philosophy and religion, but he also had this great ability to synthesize with the Western thoughts. In the school education, of course, rote learning, so on, there's less emphasis on carrying books and this shift from 10 plus 2 plus 3. And obviously, I thought this clubbing of the first 10 years of study as one was perhaps a bit wrong. So therefore, this whole emphasis from 3 to 8 as foundational, you play, you interact, no books. 8 to 11 is the age where you tend to think, you must have seen the child on the bed throwing the balloon up and see the excitement when the balloon lands here and there. And that is the age when you inculcate creativity and critical thinking. And then it gets into subject matter in 11 and 14, and then of course more fine-tuning 14 to 18. And this brings early childhood education into the system. And I think midday meal program will be extended. I think that's a great, I remember when it was introduced in Tamil Nadu, early 80s, there was hue and cry, what are the funds, it will eat into exchequer. Because it was seen not as investment, and see how Tamil Nadu achieved so much of literacy. Now the question is, how will these reforms be implemented? That's the important thing. So the NEP 65 pages, 70 pages is a broad direction. And it also refers, there is one mandatory to follow. Well, it's like education is a concurrent subject. And therefore, there has to be a collaborative process. But my sense is that so far, the report that one has seen, it has received a unanimous approval from across. And I don't see any major differences. Maybe there could be some on the language, like Andhra Pradesh has made English compulsory, so on and so forth. But by and large, one doesn't see that possibility. The issue, of course, is how are the funds going to be raised? 6% of GDP in a situation when the current economic crisis are deep. Those are issues. Then the other critical thing I see is the regional disparities. And therefore, I think this is where, with the policy is broad in its framework, there would be some scope to tailor it to particular states. The literacy levels and the standard of education vary from state to state. Remember, the first girls' school was set up by Savitri Phule in Pune in, I think, 1838 or 37, 20 years before the British set up a girls' school. We have the huge literacy movement was education started by Raja Travancore in Kerala, then Naraz in Chennai. Therefore, we don't need to make this distinction between the regional disparities and how does one education policy address it. Because mostly in the Hindi heartland, we have a difficult situation. This policy should take care of it. And one is reminded of what P. Sainath wrote in his very famous book, that while he was doing that study on Times Fellowship, that we have schools without teachers, we have teachers without schools, we have both teachers and schools, but no teaching. And this is a particular problem in some of the states, and I think that's what we have to take care of. I would have also preferred, I don't know unless it is there, I could be wrong, the setting of an Indian education service, at least at certain level, an all India education service that will give an impetus to take pride in the field of education as teachers. The last, which is of course the critical, is the English. And I think it's a welcome. And I can't imagine in a country like India anybody being unilingual. It's impossible. Therefore, in essence, what we are doing is, if most of the states have two languages, we're only adding a third language. And here I must make a distinction between, and Professor Natta did refer to it, how critical it is that the teaching happens in the mother tongue. I don't need to emphasize on that. But we do need to make a distinction between English and English ideas. Both can be beneficial and both can be debilitating. Beneficial in the sense it is international language, so on, you can interact and so on. And the NEP doesn't discourage teaching of English, it only focuses that we have the three-language formula. But it is some of the English ideas that we need to be ready to accept, and also challenge some which we find aren't necessarily that good. Remember John Milton's book on Paradise, where he referred to India as barbaric, or John Stuart Mill's description of India. I also hope that the autonomy that is reflected in the NEP leads and translates to freedom to institutions and to teachers and to students. Because we do need to make a distinction between autonomy, because invariably autonomy is from the administration, but we need freedom to teachers to innovate within the broader framework, and to students. With regard to the foreign players, I totally agree that we do need to bring in foreign players. It gives you an advantage. However, should we limit it only to Q world rankings, because some of the institutes aren't there? Max Planck Institute isn't there. Therefore, I think that's number one. And number two, I think it's very important that we decide the areas where we need greater expertise, and then take it from there and say, okay, these are the universities doing great work in this field. For example, our critical area, if you allow these foreign universities, they will go for greener areas where there is maximum demand. But I'm interested in people telling us about agriculture, sciences, veterinary sciences, afforestation schemes, desertification, what Israel has done. Therefore, I think the foreign players, instead of taking this blanket view that top 100 universities will be allowed to open campuses, I would identify what are my needs and what are the areas where I need them, and say, okay, these are the top 5 universities in the world who are number 1 in this. For example, Israel has done incredible work in agriculture, and I may take it there. And I think, therefore, I will reverse the paradigm with regard to the foreign players. But it's a great idea, and I think we need, but artificial intelligence, for example, who wouldn't like to have, and it's not necessary to have a campus, because to set up a campus will take a lot of time. Perhaps we could start with having some kind of a collaboration on these things. And I also think, because connectivity is a big issue, that's the last point I'm making, we may need to create e-learning kiosks, maybe convert post offices, and have a cluster, and we have huge number of post offices even in smaller villages, and students can come and see the programs like the programs that CEC does. I'm also not sure what the B.Ed, of course it's a great thing to have a B.Ed 4-year program, but we need to have a scheme that if somebody wants to go into teaching after having done his MA, can he again sit for 4 years, or can there be some modules? Maybe other panelists can throw light on that. So in conclusion, I think it's a great policy. We just need to set up measurable targets, not simply wait till 2035 and 40, maybe have targets every year, how much we will achieve, like they do it nowadays in highways, and if required, tweak it as we go along, because you tend to learn quite a bit. And but as I said, it's transformative, it's liberating, and I would like to end on what Winston Churchill said, that the empires of the future will be the empires of the mind, and let the century of 21st, at least the remaining years of 21st century, be of Indian mind. And because we are seeing a shift from teaching to learning and school to education. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Ogra. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. And as you very rightly said, that it is our policy, it's our education policy, and has to be adopted as per the regional aspirations. And we have to adapt, we have to adopt these measures and carry forward so that India becomes the global superpower in the 21st century. Thank you once again, sir. We have with us the next speaker for today, Professor K.G. Suresh. He has over 30 years of rich experience in teaching and research and is a senior journalist, communication strategist, served as Director General, the Indian Institute of Mass Communication, senior consulting editor with DD News, chief political correspondent with the Press Trust of India, and has been conferred with the Lifetime Achievement Award for contribution in the field of media education, and also the Maitri Shri Award in journalism, and many more laurels. I need not specifically talk about them without acting as a barrier between you and the speakers. I would like to now invite Professor Suresh for his topic today, and he's going to speak on the National Education Policy, a roadmap to Atmanirbhar Bharat. Professor Suresh, please.
Thank you so much, Gitanjali. Pleasure being back on the CEC platform. Heartiest congratulations to the CEC Director, Honorable Professor Nadda, my friend Sunil Mehru Saab, and the esteemed panelists, including the very eminent Professor Ashok Ogra and my former colleague, Dr. Anubhuti Yadav, and and all the participants from across the country. Thank you, Professor Nadda, for organizing this. And though I am calling from, I'm talking from Dehradun, my campus, but you have literally lined up from Kashmir to Kanyakumari with Haryana and so you have taken the entire country on board this panel, and my compliments. And there is nothing much left after the comprehensive presentations by Professor Nadda and Professor Ashok Ogra. I would still, try to, put across my perspective on a much, debated, discussed national education policy. I was fortunate to be part of several rounds of preliminary discussions on the draft, which was circulated. I had even been to Patna in several institutions at Delhi, All India Council of Technical Education. We had Delhi University rounds and rounds of discussion. And finally, after 34 long years, this has taken shape. And it's a very radical one. And perhaps no other policy of the government in the recent past has been so widely welcomed. And as Professor Ogra put it, except for some people questioning how pragmatic it would be and the difficulties in implementing some of the, envisaged provisions, by and large, there is a consensus. They think that, yes, it is there, it is very lofty, it is ambitious. I think that perhaps the people who drafted this and the people who contributed to this document had that in mind, to stand on one's own feet. And that's what Atmanirbhar is all about. That's what Atmanirbharta is all about, to be standing on one's own feet. And this is what I would call a man-making, not in the gender sense of the term, a character-building, man-making education, wherein a person with its emphasis on liberal arts, on life skills, on vocations, the education prepares you. The proposed education system would prepare an individual to stand on his own in the society as a thinking individual, as a person who can contribute. At a time when we have been talking about graduates and postgraduates even now, who are forced to become even laborers under the Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. You have PhDs who are running auto rickshaws in some parts of the country, where we say that, our youth are educated but not employable. Now, this is often heard that, yes, he's educated, but he's not employable because they don't have the skill sets. We have been teaching, churning out people literally in lakhs without any purpose, without any, preparing them as per their bent of mind, their aptitude. It was in a very unscientific way. It is like, the bush allowed to be grown, haywire without, any kind of planning going into it. This is the way our education system has been there. And I'm glad that now there is some real thinking which has gone into it. And some of the salient features would be, I would just flag some of them, which I feel is going to be really, one, of course, renaming the ministry itself as education, bringing back the focus on education, which is very important, as Professor Ogra said. I don't want to elaborate on these things which have already been elaborated upon. Second is, the flexibility in the education system. For me, that's a big game changer. I mean, I have had this experience in, say, Indian Institute of Mass Communication, where my students would be doing postgraduate diploma from India's leading mass communication institute. And subsequently, they're forced to go and take a graduation degree from some state university in Haryana or some correspondence. So today you have been given that option where after 1 year you can exit, with a certificate. After 2 years you can exit with a diploma, and you can come back and continue with your education. That's, in terms of flexibility, this is very important, because often, sometimes the domestic circumstances, the financial circumstances don't permit you to continue with your education, 4 years of education. So you can exit, but then there is also a lateral entry provision. You can always come back to school. That's very important. Another equally important thing I believe in flexibility is the choice of subject. I mean, I have seen students really, particularly in higher education and even 12th standard, you have, physics, biology, and maths you have to take. I mean, people who are not very familiar with or not comfortable with those subjects. So today, let's allow PCBs and PCMs and all that. I think those days are gone. So today, a science student will have to study a lot of liberal arts, and a liberal arts student will also have exposure to science. So it's not in isolation. It's not, compartmentalized, science, commerce, humanities. So we have nothing to do with each other. It would be a holistic approach to education. Now, this is going to make me today come to think of it. I'm a journalist. I come from a from a humanities background. I did my English literature from Delhi University. And I, continued in that discipline. But today, as a journalist, if I have to survive, I have to be comfortable with data analytics, data journalism. Now, data is obviously mathematics. How to interpret data? Now, I have all along been indifferent to mathematics. Now, how to inculcate that today, wherein even when I am doing my journalism, data becomes an integrated part of my learning process. So is the case with, say, science communication. Today you are dealing with, COVID-19. So I believe that every media student should be exposed to mass communication, should be exposed to evidence-based research. And that's what, again, at IMC, along with Oxford University and Thomson Reuters Foundation, we designed India's first public health communication program. Because health, how can somebody who is doing journalism say that, no, I've only done humanities, I can't be getting into this. This is science, you need to understand. So we have to have a very holistic approach, and that's what is envisaged in this document. Again, we have always been cribbing that we are not ranked we don't find a mention in the global rankings of educational institutions, except one or two institutions which come in the top 100. We generally don't figure anywhere. Though our students have been doing extremely well and they have been, heading institutions, they are ruling the Silicon Valley. But in spite of that, the fact remains that yes. Now, where is the gap? I believe that we have the most committed teachers. We have the most brilliant students. Then again, where is the problem? The problem is with research. Our education system doesn't have a focus on research. We don't have a research. One, of course, is the lack of funding. And second is that we are still in a very, very, superficial form of research that we are engaging ourselves in. So it's very important that research, so that's why you have a National Research Foundation. So the entire focus, this research aspect is going to, enable us to make a mark among the top institutions in the world. That is what distinguishes us from the other institutions across the world. Their emphasis is on research. They provide a conducive atmosphere. They provide the support. And the students who are brilliant are looking for opportunities abroad because they get an opportunity to, give wings to their imagination. Now, this is very important. The language part. Absolutely. I believe that the original thinking, if it has to be there, it cannot be in a language. I won't call English a foreign language anymore. But having said that, it's neither my mother tongue. Also, we feel comfortable in our mother tongue and we should think in our mother tongue and we should be able to scientifically think in our mother tongue. We should be able to intellectually think in rather than translate it. For that original thinking, it is very important that our education, the basis of that education system is in our languages. But we have to ensure that this education policy, when it is implemented, it should not be that the private educational institutions or the so-called public schools are get away with teaching only English and this entire language, onus is put on the government schools. So again, we are creating a divide. So we have to be strictly enforce this so that our students across the spectrum are exposed to, because language gives you, it's not just a language, it's not just a communication skill. It exposes you to culture, it exposes you to civilization, it exposes you to, so many things about your own which you are not aware of. Say a student in, public school studying in Kashmir would hardly be knowing anything about the history of Kashmir, about the civilization of Kashmir, the poetry of Kashmir. He would hardly be, aware of it. And these things have to be instilled during childhood itself. So language is there. And that's why even in higher education, during my tenure at IMC, what we did was that we implemented Marathi journalism introduced from Amravati campus and Malayalam journalism from Kerala campus. So we are bringing higher education. So this is possible. And today those students are doing exceedingly well. We started Urdu here, Sanskrit here. Now, another thing which is really, which has I feel, which is going to, bring about a lot of change, is this plan over the next 15 years to stop this affiliation business. I mean, you have universities in UP and other places, there are 800 colleges here under one university. Imagine, affiliated to one. Now that affiliation gives you a blank check. Oh, we are affiliated to anybody can run anything without basic infrastructure, without anything, even, any facilities. You have an affiliation and the student comes there. And so there would be a hell of a difference between somebody studying in one remote corner and somebody studying at the university campus or in a city affiliated to that, college, to that university. There has to be standardization. And I think this 15-year thing of stopping this affiliation business, wherein either the colleges would become, after 15 years, autonomous institutions which would grant degrees, or become constituent colleges of the university. So this affiliation business stops. This has been a hindrance in the way of excellence. So this is going to change. You are going to have colleges which would be autonomous, which would be you are encouraging. So there would be, I would say, one of the best things about this policy is that it is going to bring competitiveness in the education system. You will be having colleges which will compete with each other to get the cream of the students. That's very important. That competitiveness was missing. It became chalta hai. This chalta hai approach is going to be done away with Indian education system. I think that's the vision. That's the vision. But please remember, I keep saying this. This is not a magic wand, abracadabra, and overnight everything is going to change. No, it's going to be, a slow but a process which will have, massive changes. The 6%, 6% allocation, that's the target. That states and center together are able to achieve that target of 6% spending on education. That's the ideal. We have been talking about it for decades. For a country like India, a developing country like India, it's very important that education and health have to be our primary concerns. And 6%, I mean, if you ask somebody like me, I would say 10. But yes, 6. Even if we are able to achieve it, that's going to make a great difference. We are going to expand on the gross enrollment ratio, and we are going to ensure, that the right to education in a big way. Again, the focus on the teacher training is something very important. Not only that B.Ed training is going to be 4 years, but also the entire focus on the importance of teacher training. I think that's another thing that I look as a very positive thing. There has been multiplicity of institutions, which is creating a lot of confusions. So except for the Bar Council of India and the National Medical Commission, I think that, all of them are going to be merged under the Higher Education Commission of India with verticals on accreditations, rankings, and funding, except, as I said, that these two bodies. So this multiplicity of, bodies being merged and brought under an umbrella system is very important to bring about standardization and benchmarking. The emphasis on online education, the emphasis on National Education Technology Forum, I think is very important, where people can come, exchange ideas. We are all having this online, and I must compliment, CEC was far ahead of its time. And CEC is watched not only by people in, you may have hostile relations with your neighbors like Pakistan, but the fact is that CEC is watched by people even in Pakistan, in huge numbers. That only talks about, what Nadda was talking about, the India being the Vishwa Guru, in education. The content is going to matter. And today online has become a reality, whether you like it or not. We are looking at a blended mode of, education in the coming days. So this is going to, this entire focus on vocationalization, having 10 bagless days in schools, is something that really is exciting. I hope that it actually, because we have had cartoons and an n number of debates on the huge burden that small children stunting their growth. I think that this 10 bagless days, when they are going to be away from all theories and everything, are going to have it in a fun-filled atmosphere, wherein they would get their first exposure to vocation of their choice, is something that's very important. The imparting of life skills. For example, at our own university at UPES, we are, from this academic session, we are introducing a school of life, wherein we are, actually going to teach students on certain life skills which are so important. For example, we have engineering students, we have computer science students who may not be able to write one proper letter, an official letter, because they are good at computers, they are good at software, hardware, they are good at, other things, engineering, but they are not, they cannot write one letter. These are basic skills, I think this is what is required to be inculcated. And we are trying to do that because value addition has to be there. How your value addition is going to be different from that of others is going to distinguish you as an institution. Because everybody is ultimately teaching the same thing. What IMC is teaching is being taught in other media colleges also. What will distinguish a media education institution is how and what new thing he is going to be taught. This is something which is going to be important. Just a couple of more points before I wind up. I think that the entire focus is now on, when there's going to be a national testing agency and all that, but testing is not just going to test the capabilities of a student. It is also going to test the capabilities of a teacher. Whether a teacher has been competent in teaching. Because, you see, I have always said this, that there are no bad students. But the possibility of a bad teacher can always be there. So I think the parameter has to be, the testing parameter has to be how successful the teacher has been able to teach the student. If a student has not been able to catch up, then it is the responsibility of the teacher to focus, give him full attention. That is very important. So I think we need to teach that, what am I teaching? Why am I teaching? And how I am teaching? I think these three answers, and today being National Teachers' Day, there could not have been a more auspicious occasion for some real introspection. And I think that that's what, and there have to be, what is education? Education, you have to really challenge your students at the end of the day. You cannot be a status quoist as a teacher. You have to challenge them intellectually so that they are able to think even beyond the classrooms. It has to be thought-provoking, wherein they should look for change. And that is where the aspect of critical thinking comes in. And that is one of the, I think that when we are talking about core competencies, where the objective of teaching is to find about the core competency of the student. That is a big change that's going to happen. Well, I believe that the session has its limitation. I can go on and on because this is such an interesting subject, the national education policy with so many dimensions, which I believe can be a real game changer for this country. We have been wanting to have a visionary education policy which would prepare our students for the future, in not only in terms of their employability, but in terms of, because this is going to contribute to nation building in a big way, because the entire attitude of the students are going to change. They are not going to be run-of-the-mill kind of people being just produced en masse. I think they are going to be thinking individuals who will think about the society, who will think about the country, who will think about, so these aspects are very important. And I believe that all these aspects have been taken into account. I'll just conclude by saying that don't expect overnight results. Things are going to be, take time, but we have windows for different 2025 for gross enrollment ratio, 15 years for 2035 for affiliation of colleges. So it's going to bring about changes. It may take time, but it is going to be a roadmap for an Atmanirbhar Bharat. It is going to be a roadmap for a self-reliant, a self-respecting, a proud India, which has, a lot of emphasis this education system is going to have on Indian, value systems, Indian civilization, Indian history, and that identity has to be established wherein you have a sense of pride. At the same time, you are aware of the challenges and how to, to face them. That's very important. Again, we will give the example at IIMC, we introduced Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, Sadharanikaran, and all those theories along with the Western communication theories. Because the Indian aspect one has to talk about, because globally there is awareness. Even I come from the discipline of mass communication. Today, in countries of Southeast Asia, they're talking about Buddhist communication models. You have professors like Kalinga Sanivaratne who are actually working on these things. Across the world, there is a realization that back to the roots, because from roots, you get your strength. Only then, a tree with deep roots only can have really good fruits. And I think that this is going to be a visionary, game changer, catalyst in nation building. And on that note, once again, my compliments to CEC for organizing this wonderful webinar. Thank you so much. And happy Teachers' Day once again.
Thank you, sir. I think indeed it was inspirational listening to your talk. And secondly, it is a very kind of motivating for all the academicians who are participating in the webinar that we also have to be honest in our deliberations. It is a great policy, which is, which is wanting which is aspiring to be man-making in its character. So Professor Suresh clearly sieved in the crux of the national education policy and inspired us with his emphatic words. Now I would welcome our next speaker, Professor Anubhuti Yadav. She has more than 15 years of experience in teaching and research and is a leading expert and active promoter of media literacy in the country. Her work in the area of educational media won her 4 national awards on Best Script Writers, Researchers for the series on Women Achievers, and the other awards in media literacy. She has received the Innovative Use of ICT in Education Award in the year 2016. And now I would request Dr. Yadav to speak on the role of technology in education.
Happy Teachers' Day to all of you. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Professor J.B. Nadda, Dr. Nehru and his team for putting this event together on the occasion of Teachers' Day, and also for choosing national education policy as a theme for today's discussion and deliberation. And this is something which is very, very important. And as previous speakers said, that we've got this policy after so many years. So it's really very important to talk about it so that it reaches teachers and students and also parents. All the speakers, Professor Nadda, Professor Ashok Ogra, and Professor K.J. Suresh, very articulately they have explained national education policy and the reforms it will bring and the kind of impact it will have on education landscape in India. So I think there is very less left for me, but still I'll try to do my part. So if we talk about, national education policy, and as said by earlier speaker, this is something which was widely accepted by everyone, all the stakeholders. And we've seen, a lot of positive coverage, barring 1 or 2 issues. So it's a progressive document, and it has actually taken into consideration all the challenges which we have been facing in the field of education for quite some time. When we talk about the challenges, there are a number of challenges in the sense that, the enormity of young population that needs to be educated. In India, we have a huge population. There are a lot of students in schools and colleges that needs to be educated. So it is a huge challenge in front of teachers and in front of those who are working on educational policies and also like in the ministry. Multiplicity of language is another important issue, and that has been posing, a lot of challenge in the sense that most of the textbooks which we see either in English or Hindi or like the content, especially like the online content, we see in, like very few languages. So like that is something which was posing, a lot of challenges. Then flexibility in the education system, that's a huge problem. Till now we've been talking about a system wherein student has to get up 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock he has to be there in the school, till 2 o'clock there will be classes. Same goes for the higher education. So like we have seen that the education system is very, very, has been very, very inflexible. Then textbook-centric education. For example, any child starts his academic year with, one textbook and ends that academic year with that particular textbook. We've not explored, variety of sites which are available for, knowledge delivery. So that's the huge challenge which we have been facing. Another challenge which we had faced, in the past is like inflexibility in the examination system. And this is something which all of us had faced, in the last 2-3 months, after this pandemic, which means that we were not able to conduct examination, whether there was semester examination or the entrance examination. All of us, as teachers, institutes, organizations, we are facing that particular problem. And this problem is coming that because we've always been very inflexible when it comes to assessment and when it comes to examination system. But, when we talk about, these challenges, yes, there has been a lot of work which has been done in the past. But when I read the national education policy, I feel that, I felt that there is, a lot of issues and which were mentioned in national education policy. And I could see that, this can give new direction to our age-old process systems, which were there, in the field of education. And of course, this national education policy is going to do just that. It will try to, overcome all these challenges. And especially like when we talking about overcoming these, challenges, technology is going to play a very, very important role. And this is something which we had seen in the past. In the last 3 or 4 months, we have seen the way technology has helped all the teachers. And in fact, like there are a number of teachers who are watching this particular program. And I would like to compliment each and every teacher because, we've been talking about health workers and all that they're doing well. Yes, they are. But at the same time, teachers did, exemplar work, at the time of this crisis. The classes are going on. Even the teachers who had never been trained in online education, they were able to deliver their course. They were able to, teach their students. So that was like tremendous work which was done by teachers and during this particular crisis. So specifically coming on to technology and in national education policy, they've touched upon 2 very important areas. One was the technology used in education, and second is online and digital learning. One biggest takeaway, which Professor Suresh has also mentioned, in national education policy, is the creation of a National Education Technology Forum. This is something which we have been thinking for quite some time, in the sense that, even in the last education policy, there was mention of education technology, but we didn't have any forum which can execute, number of things in education system. So this is a, biggest takeaway when we talk about technology in education and use of that. And definitely like this is created to provide a platform for the free exchange of ideas on the use of technology to enhance learning, assessment, planning and administration. All these areas requires technology intervention, and I'm sure this National Technology Education Forum will definitely guide all the institutes, all the organizations on how to induct, how to deploy technology in their institutes. Also, like this particular forum, which says, which national education policy says, that is going to conduct, a lot of training program for teachers. And this is something which is needed. Right now, what has been done is that we were all pushed towards online teaching. We were not prepared for this. So what we are doing right now is we are experimenting with the technology. Sometimes we are going right, sometimes we are going wrong. But somewhere, this is a very welcome step, wherein it is said that, all the teachers will be trained in the use of technology. And this is something which will be done by National Technology Education Forum. And of course, they'll be, providing this platform to the different organizations to share their, best practices. Say, for example, at IMC, Professor Suresh gave a lot of examples for that. At IMC, IMC is the only institute who was able to conduct, the semester end examination. And we did that. We actually tried to find out an innovative way of doing it. So we used technology for that particular thing, and it was a successful thing, and we were able to manage that particular thing. So somewhere, I think that the institutes, organizations, teachers, they have to be open-minded when it comes to use of technology, and it will offer a number of solutions. Now, coming on to the specifics, what national education policy is offering, when we're talking about use of technology in education. One is the pilot studies for online education. So they're saying that we need to identify institutes and organizations like CIET, NIOS, IGNU, those who will conduct research studies in the field of online education. This is something which is very, very important. As I said, right now we have pushed towards this thing and we are doing it. But we need to conduct a lot of research. How are we doing it? What are the methods which are successful? What are the formats that work with students? So there is a lot of research that needs to be conducted in this area, and this is something NEP has recommended. Also, not only like in the area of teaching, how students are actually engaging with the technology. Say, for example, nowadays, we have a lot of issues like the addiction to technology or devices. So we need to conduct researches in that particular area. Second very important thing and recommendation is to build up that robust digital infrastructure. And this is something which we have seen in the last 3 or 4 months, wherein some people, for them, it was easy to be on online platform, but there are a number of people who are still struggling. So how can you create that digital infrastructure for everyone, across the country, so that even the students who are there in urban areas, rural areas, they are able to attend their classes. And also the infrastructure should be in such a way that, when we talk about technology, there's always, rapid advancement, and there are changes happening, maybe like in every year. So the technology has to be, deployed in such a way that it doesn't affect that, in the sense that they don't have to change the technology and whatever the equipments are deployed, every year or so. So there has to be a lot of research in this area, and, it has to be a very well thought out process. Another very important thing was online teaching platforms and tools. We do have a lot of online teaching platforms and tools. Say, for example, CEC is there, PG Pathshala is there, SWAM platform is there, Diksha is there. Now, the recommendation is that we need to extend these platforms so that we can provide number of other assistive tools to teachers, so that they can it can enhance their teaching learning process. For example, on SWAM platform, or maybe like on CEC or PG Pathshala, can we integrate, two-way conferencing there? Then content creation, digital repository and dissemination. This is very, very important, which means we're talking about online education. Many a times it will happen that in synchronous mode, we won't be able to reach large number of students. So we need to create the repository of content, educational content. And in this matter, I would like to congratulate CEC because, and Professor Suresh has also mentioned that the moment this pandemic started, I think, they started with the series which is called Recorded from Home. And, all the teachers, they've been recording lectures in their own areas, and they were putting it up on YouTube. So it is very, very important to create a digital repository and disseminate, educational content. Also creating content using wide variety of technology. Why only just audio and video? How can we use maybe like augmented reality for that, virtual reality for that? So that is something which we need to work on when we are talking about online education. Then addressing digital divide. Very important issue, though at times we feel and we say, and I've also complimented teachers, but yes, there is a resentment also. There are a lot of students who are left out. They're not able to attend classes. So what is the alternate method for them? For example, when we are talking about online teaching, of course, they need to have access to computers. They need to have access to, other equipments. But what about other students who do not have that? So how can we use other methods like our own mass media tools, like television, radio, community radio, to reach out to those students who do not have access to technology? If we talk about internet penetration in India, right? Like less than 50% of India has access to internet. So which means like we cannot, leave out those students who do not have access to internet. We need to find out alternate way to reach these, students. So this is another thing which, the NEP has recommended. Then virtual labs. Now you go to rural areas or maybe like small cities. These students do not have access to good labs. So can like virtual labs be created on, the platforms like Swam Prabha, Diksha, so that the students can have hands-on training there. So that this is another recommendation. And as mentioned by previous speakers, that training and incentives for teachers, teachers require a lot of training in this particular area. It's not just a video conferencing, or it's not just like audio conferencing for teachers. If you're moving on to digital platform, there are a number of things which you have to have knowledge of. For example, each and every subject has variety of digital tools which can be used in maths, in geography, in physics, in science, and all the teachers should be aware of those particular tools. And here I would like to compliment another institute, which is a Central Institute of Education Technology, NCERT. The moment this pandemic started, they started this one series wherein every day they're talking about one digital tool which a teacher can use. And that tool could be like a subject-specific tool, or that tool could be a generic tool which can be used for like lectures or making quiz or like, for assessment, anything. But, that was a wonderful initiative which was started by CIT NCERT. Another recommendation as far as the technology is concerned in NEP is online assessment. Right? This is very, very important. All of us, we had faced this particular problem. The academic year has been delayed just because we do not have, robust online assessment system. So they had said that, the organizations like National Testing Agency, NAC, PARAK, all of them, they have to get together and they have to find out, what is that, online system, assessment system, which, the colleges, universities and schools, they can use. Last, very important thing, a recommendation is that we have to move towards blended mode of learning. And in fact, when we talk about blended mode of learning, we have been doing that. In the sense that when our students were there at our institute, I come from Indian Institute of Mass Communication. When my students were there, at that time also I was using blended mode of learning, in the sense that I was interacting with them face to face. But at the same time, I was also giving them a lot of assignments, a lot of videos to watch. Maybe like CEC has a YouTube channel. So I was recommending, some of the videos from CEC channel. So they were doing that. We were using that blended mode. But even in the blended mode of learning, there are a number of models. For example, right now what we are doing, and most of the institutes are doing, we are experimenting with, online and offline, which means like till December or February, like till the time this pandemic is there, we'll be having online teaching and then we'll have offline teaching. And when we talk about blended learning in India, everybody says that it's a new normal. But, if you talk about the developed countries, blended learning is an established practice. They've been doing it for quite some time. And there have been a lot of researches which have been conducted in this particular area, which says that the blending learning is a successful method of teaching. So somewhere we need to move towards, blended learning. And with blended learning, I'm not saying that, everything has to be online. The face-to-face interaction is always important. When the students come to a classroom, when they sit with their peer group, a lot of learning happens at that point of time. Social interaction is something which is very, very important. And as teachers also, we would like to have presence of students in campus. But yes, the combination of technologies, combination of method is something which we can always explore. Also, in NEP, till now we've not talked about, all these technologies in education, but it has been said that, we need to use artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, smartphones, handheld computer devices, whatever technology is available. We need to integrate that, in teaching learning process. Yes, it has to be backed by the research. It's not that blindly we are going and picking up technology and saying that I'm going to use it. Yes, it has to be backed by technology, and that is the work which has been given to National Technology Education Forum. This is the last point which I would like to stress upon, and that is data, in the sense that when you talk about artificial intelligence, and when you are talking about online teaching, being online throughout the day, there is a lot of data which is being generated, and there is a need for training for the teachers, for the students, about data security, about privacy. This is going to be a huge thing, in the times to come. So they should be aware of, all these important issues. So with a national education policy, there are a number of recommendations, but at the same time, I feel that there has to be a training and awareness programs on how to protect your own data, like what are the privacy issues when you go online. So that is something that needs to be something needs to be delivered to students and to teachers. Another very important point here, now when we are talking about national education policy, is that we need to collaborate. I have seen, and this is something which I have raised at number of platforms, that we already have, a lot of online content, which means we have forums platforms like CEC, PG Pathshala, then you have Diksha, then you have SWAM, then you have SWAM Prabha channel. And, the educationists have created a lot of content for all these platforms. Right now, there is the need for all of them to collaborate. And, there is, yes, we need to create new content also, but whatever content is existing right now, I think, that particular content can be mapped with the curriculum, and then that can be, disseminated for students and for teachers. So the collaboration is the key. Unfortunately, educational institutes are working in silos. Okay, this is my job, I'll do this. This is my job, I'll do this. They don't realize that this content has already been made by, someone else. So instead of, starting afresh, why don't you borrow that content from another government organization and have it on your portal? So this is something that needs to be done. Last point, we need to have a lot of awareness program. For example, all these platforms, all the courses that has been developed under SWAM portal, frankly speaking, there's lack of awareness. Many a times it happens that even the teachers are not aware that these many things are available for all of us to use. So a massive awareness program is needed so that the teachers and students are aware of the online content, e-content, which is already available on different online platforms. So this is, I think, all I have to say, because I wanted to be very specific on technologies, because I had worked in the field of education technology for quite some time. And I'm very happy that, one of the leading education technologists, Professor Vasudha Kamath, was part of, this particular team who actually drafted national education policy. And that's why I could see that there is a lot of input when we talk about technology and education in national education policy. And I'm sure in the time to come, this pandemic has shown us that there was something, all the educational technologists have been forecasting for some time, that the world will move towards online education. But, after this pandemic, I think, we have done that. We are already there. Now we have to figure it out, what are the best ways of, delivering content online, or maybe offering online courses. And for this, all of us, all the teachers, organizations, we have to come together. And one very important thing is for teachers, when we talk about the training programs. So the training program would be on the use of technology, one. And the second one is, which is very, very important, is how to create online content. It is not the job of the organizations. Ultimately, the content will be created by the teachers. So the training program will be on that. And my request to all the teachers, and I'm sure the teachers who are attending this particular training programs are the content creators. They need to, upskill themselves on, how to create quality content for their students, or maybe for the portals like CEC, PG Pathshala, and Diksha and SWAM platforms. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Anubhuti Yadav. It was really inspirational, and I think a lot of impetus has been given to the role of digital education and how the teachers can rope in themselves and they have to upskill themselves and learn the certain things which are required to produce the quality content for the students. Meanwhile, we were having these presentations. We have received a set of questions that that raise concern and that really are pertinent to the theme that we have chosen today. The first question, I would just read it out. It is that with so much emphasis on technology, will it decrease the importance of teachers in the classroom? How can teachers be motivated to use technology in the classroom? So I think the question definitely requires Dr. Yadav once again to join in and just answer it back. If you just listen to the question, ma'am, it clearly says that how teachers can be motivated to use technology in the classroom.
Yeah, so the first part of the question is that whether the technology will replace the teachers. Well, the answer to this is like absolutely not, right? The teachers will always be there. It's the teachers who are going to use technologies. It's the teachers who are going to create content. So the teachers will always be there. So it's not that the technology is going to replace teachers. And the second part of your question is that how can we motivate teachers to use technology? I think, one is that it should come from a teacher only, in the sense that, when you teach a one particular subject, you know your subject well, you know your students well, right? And you know at what time you have to use a one particular digital tool or a technology. So one is that any good teacher, if he or she thinks that it is required, they'll use it. But yes, if you want some extra external motivation for teachers, in school education, we already have that, in the sense that there is this award which is being given to teachers for using technology innovatively in classroom. CIT, NCRT is like, they have constituted this award for school teachers, but CEC can think of having this award for the teachers who are coming from higher education institutes or universities. So that could be one of the motivation. Another, we already have motivation in the sense that, if you look at all the teachers are there, if you look at, our 2018 Proforma, that API score for the career advancement and all, teachers are given a lot of, marks for the e-content which they prepare.
Thank you, Professor Yadav. How futuristic and visionary is the new policy? This has actually replaced the 34-year-old national policy on education. And how is this new policy futuristic and visionary? So I think I would pose it to Professor Ogra to enlighten us on this issue. Maybe he can deliberate upon
this. I don't think it replaces. I think when you talk of replacement, then you're talking about gradual improvement. It's transformative. As I said, I call it the second tryst with India's future. The first was the 47. And I think from 47 till now, we had education which was in bits and pieces, fragmented, focused too much on study, no integration, vocationalization, no integration within an ethos. So no emphasis on critical thinking and creativity. Liberal arts to baat ki baat hai. I mean, to talk about liberal arts approach to education 10 years back would have invited, criticism. So therefore, I don't think it replaces. I think it's a total break, and that's why perhaps it is transformative and liberating. And in all senses, from the if I could define it as C's, first is the constitution of it. The constitution of it is in terms of the autonomy to the institutions, to the teachers and the students. Then the content, and I think Professor Anubhuti did deliberate on that, as did Professor Suresh. The content in terms of what is to be delivered, how students will receive it, how they will consume it, their speed, their convenience. Then the issue of connectivity, that remains an issue, but we need to synergize too many platforms, and I think the NEP does reflect on that. Then the most important is what I find, the collaboration. This is an age of collaboration. There are a lot of, we need to learn also from the business world. Let me give you an example from Discovery and BBC. We are competitors in the US when it came to Natural World Series. They run a series, they run a channel in US, and of course, Discovery is the US channel. But when we came to India, we entered into a collaboration on Animal Planet. So it's a 50-50 partnership. Therefore, I see this whole concept of cluster coming in together and collaborating with each other. I think that's the other C that I see coming so strongly in this policy. So in that sense, what I'm saying is the whole approach is so very different. It's futuristic, and it has come a bit late. Nevertheless, we are ready for it. The challenge would be, how do we take it forward in terms of implementation? Because we have to take states, on board, and perhaps GST is an example that we need to adopt here and take it forward.
Thank you, Professor Ogra. We'll now take up the next question. It is from Professor Amna Mirza. She wants to know that there's an important focus on multidisciplinary education and industry interface. There must be attempt to revamp or add more to the existing online learning platforms for correct collaboration with industry. Please guide us on the same.
I think that, it's all about cooperation and collaboration. We are even looking at, when we are looking about bringing the top 100, global universities to India, we are only looking at collaborations and cooperation. It is going to be, an industry academia interface is going to be strengthened, in the coming days, because that is why the emphasis is on vocationalization of education. What do you mean by vocationalization? That means more incubation centers are going to be there. You had experiments like the Atal Innovation Labs. What were they basically? They were providing a conducive atmosphere to the students to engage in meaningful research and also make it relevant to the industry, to the needs of the industry. I mean, I have at my university, at the University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, we have, come with models like AeroOpt, wherein in an aerodrome, we can have different counters, and through a software, without having people to actually, because this is a COVID period, and you don't need people to actually man these counters and send people to different counters. There's an automatic, information system wherein the passengers would know where you have a lesser number of people, and they would come to know about it. Similarly, for sanitizing dispensation, for sanitary pads, you name it. Today, there is a lot of innovations and research which is taking place. And this can happen only when there is a collaboration. We have a collaboration with IBM, and we are in our own media school, we are having collaboration with several new media platforms, which are going to be the change makers. So I think that we have to prepare the students for the industry. We have to make them industry ready. And for that, the emphasis is on, earlier the emphasis was on internship, and with the objective being placement. Now it has changed. Placement is certainly important even today. But we are today looking at enhanced academia industry collaboration. That is why the focus is on NRF, the National Research Foundation. Academia, universities, national level institutions of eminence are going to be the places where you are going to see world-class research. And this research would be converted into products and services with the help and collaboration of the industry. So that is the entire focus on, and that is what, the entire focus on vocationalization, the entire focus on, bringing in the industry. And that is why norms are going to be changed. Industry is going to play a very critical role in the entire education sector.
Mr. Suresh, maybe I think I have another question for you in pipeline. S. Murali from Madurai Center wants to know that as Professor Suresh mentioned about the flexibility for students to leave and rejoin, whether the students can rejoin in the same institution or elsewhere?
Well, the details are yet to emerge. We are still waiting for the entire details, but I believe it should be because, for example, I gave you the example of IIMC. Now, we got it a letter of intent to be a deemed to be university. Now, based on that, we are now recruiting professors. We are enhancing the infrastructure. Once it becomes a university, students who have passed out with a diploma can rejoin it, have a lateral entry, do their PhD, do their masters. That was the vision. So the whole idea is that somewhere the students can come back to their parent institution and they don't have to depend on any other institution for continuation of their education. But what is to be seen is what is the kind of window that would be given. Once you exit, will it be for life? That you can come back at the age of 60, you left it at the age of 22, and you are coming back at the age of 60 to complete your degree? Or will you be given a 5-year, 10-year, kind of a thing? That those details are yet to emerge. But yes, this is positive that you can always come back and continue with your education. That flexibility is there.
I'd just like to add a very critical point which is there, which I think we haven't referred to, is the Academic Credit Bank, ABC. Which is that when you join a course, you earn certain credits, and for some reasons you exit. Then this is not a waste. You have earned those credits. And if I correctly know, if I read the document, you can migrate from institution to institutions. But as Professor Suresh said, the issue is they see. Remember, this is a broad guideline. What age, to what extent the exit and entry would be allowed, those will be the tactical part of it is to be worked out. But the important thing is the ABC that you can create a bank of your credits, which you keep on adding, and therefore you're eligible as you move on.
Thank you, Professor Ogra.
I'll also add to it. When we're talking about institutions, there are institutions which are traditional and conventional institutions, where you go to the classroom and you get taught, and probably technology is also used as far as education is concerned. There is another set of educational institutions that is completely online. So first is that we need to understand the difference between the two organizations. Even in conventional, in the best universities all over the globe, they don't permit you to go for online or probably earning credits more than 50%. Because they believe in that you must learn the culture of an institution also, as far as traditional is concerned. As far as moving lateral or exit or entry to any institution is concerned, yes, there is a bank being created. You earn credit from anywhere, and then you can move to any institution with those credits carrying on. So there would not be any difficulty in joining any organization or any institution that you would wish to. So earning credit is primary, which is, and secondly, the clientele is also very different for online. The clientele could be working people, there could be housewives, there could be any number of people. So that is where it is not only about earning degree, it is also about earning knowledge. So many people would like to do courses, but not take examinations and be educated. So the whole purpose of online is at this point of time that people can earn credits also and move laterally anywhere in any organization. Thank you.
Thank you. We now take up the next question. It is from Dr. Aparajita Chauhan. And the question says that how does the new education policy envisage to prevent the possible discrimination between the early learners of the rural and the urban environments? Since the levels of exposures of both these urban and rural setup is different, how would one fortify the knowledge for a rural child?
This is where the teacher comes in. I think most of the questions still are framed in the context of the old education policy. The teacher has all the freedom and the autonomy to change the pedagogy to suit the students. So that would be taken care of. The student will define both the speed and the technique of methodology of teaching to them when it comes to the teacher. So teacher is dependent on student as much as students are dependent on teacher. But if somebody else wants to add it, that would be fine. I think the questions need to be, we are still, and it is not anybody's fault. I still see questions rooted because of the influence of the old policies. This is transformative, this is liberating. The teacher there would be, a teacher sting in Delhi would be different, a teacher sting in Balia will be different, his methodology would be different, his framework would be different. He has the autonomy to do that, and that's the beauty of it.
Thank you, Professor Ogra. We have a question.
I would just add to this that maybe the question is not very clear to the panelists. When we are talking about general education, certainly the national education policy talks about teaching in various languages. And as far as school is concerned, you can be taught and you can be graded and you can be passed to next class in your mother tongue. So I don't think so there's any difference between a student in an urban area and a rural area, because the colleges and schools are there in rural areas also. As far as higher education is concerned, again, as we said, that even online education, we are translating the entire content that we have in 8 different languages. Now the number may increase with the passage of time, but to begin with, and we are very shortly coming out with these 8 language MOOCs on SWAYAM platform. So I don't think so there would be a great divide.
Just to add, Professor Nadda, I believe that there is an effort at benchmarking, creating a sort of standardization, because you have a foundational learning curriculum, divided into 2 parts. So you have a 3 to 6. You have a prior to the age of 5. Every child will move to a preparatory class or a Bal Vatika in the rural areas. You see. So then you have a foundation stage that's grade 1 to 2. You have a grading system wherein play, discovery, activity based and interact. Today you have the Anganwadis, which would be Bal Vatikas, and then it would be a middle stage experiential learning. So I think that there is an effort that's being made to kind of standardize, facilities. I know there would always be a gap, but I think that this spending that we are looking at, 6%, I think would be utilized effectively to bridge that gap, the rural-urban gap.
Another question, it is from Debashish Iyer. The question says that as CEC is the pioneer of digital education with its 21 EMRCs, is there any plan for opening a fully online university?
This is for the panel. This is for those sitting and organizing it.
Yes, we have been making claim and we have been talking at various places. I'll just share with you that there's a committee which has been formed by UGC and MHRD, and I'm also a member of that committee with regard to permitting universities to go online also and run online courses. I will not get into the details of that committee, what they have recommended, but what I say that even if we permit anyone to start online courses, running graduate courses and postgraduate courses, any university, I think CEC is the richest at this point of time. They may start about 2 years later. We can just start it in another 2 months or 3 months' time by filling in the gaps where probably one paper in political science is not with us, which we can get done, or one paper in history, or one paper in geography, or one paper, we can just get it done because we have already got a repository. We are the richest at this point of time. So we would certainly like to have one vertical where we can run a university that is, if we are considered as deemed to be university by University Grants Commission. We have set the ball rolling, but I don't know what the government decides, and this new policy has come. What is the future lying after 8 months or 7 months? We have no idea about that, but we are going to exist. Be rest assured. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have another question, and I think Professor Anubhuti Yadav would be the right person. Is it possible to incorporate the digital learning method in the Gurukul system of learning? I think probably it is about the old system of education, and the blend of this old system with the the new digital learning. So if you want to elaborate upon.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't get the question properly, but the only thing is that, see, we are moving towards, when we are saying that we are moving towards online education, we should not say that, it's a technology-based education, right? It's a new ways of education. And in the new ways of education, we have room for everything. We need to have a room for experiential learning. We need to have a room for, like the older system of education. So we need to have room for everything. And that is something which I always say, that don't say that it's a technology-based learning. It has to be a new ways of learning, which should provide opportunities to teachers and to students to blend each, and every model of learning which we had earlier.
I think I would take up the last question, and it is to our Honorable Director itself. What will be the status of CEC and EMMRCs in the near future, as under the new education policy, UGC is going to be replaced by the NCHER?
Well, CEC certainly, or all inter-university centers are going to exist, because when we talk about inter-university center, these are the centers which are catering to the needs of various universities. So whatever the nomenclature, whether it is UGC or AICT or yet another which is coming up, I think the CEC and all inter-university centers are going to exist, maybe in a different kind of lateral or vertical that we have in the new format of new education policy. So we don't have to worry about that. Digital education is in place, and it will be. Yet another center for teachers training has been established in Banaras Hindu University. That is again an inter-university center of University Grants Commission. These are going to exist because they are relevant in the present new educational policy.
It's a great finale to the seminar.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I would just like to share some of my thoughts. हमारे शिक्षक हमेशा ही परखे जाएंगे. हम लोगों की काफी चर्चा हुई, और I'm not as a eloquent speaker as ओगरा साहब और सुरेश जी और अनुभूति जी. इन्होंने बड़ी अच्छी बातें कही और बहुत सीखने को मिला मुझे भी और पार्टिसिपेंट्स को भी. लेकिन मैं ये कहूँगा कि टीचिंग बहुत डिफिकल्ट जॉब है. टेक्नोलॉजी इज ईजियर देन टीचिंग, बिकॉज टीचिंग इज समथिंग विच इज वेरी एब्स्ट्रैक्ट इन नेचर. हम यहाँ चर्चा कर रहे हैं, बड़े नए विषय आए और हमने नए विषयों के बारे में चर्चा की. यहाँ से क्या लेकर के जाएंगे और ये हमारी पर्सनालिटी में क्या फर्क लाएगा, इसको आंकना बहुत ही कठिन हो जाता है. जब शिक्षक किसी भी स्टूडेंट के साथ इंटरेक्ट करता है तो कोई टैंजिबल कोई चीज दिखाई नहीं देती. मैं कई बार ये कहता हूँ कि आप दीवार बनाइए तो शाम तक आप 3 फीट दीवार चढ़ा सकते हैं और उसके बाद शाम को बता सकते हैं कि आपने इतनी मेहनत की और 3 फीट दीवार उठी. लेकिन 1 साल में किसी शिष्य के साथ समय काटता हूँ, उसको किसी भी ढंग से पढ़ाता हूँ, मैं ये नहीं बता सकता कि उसमें क्या फर्क ला पाया हूँ और उसके जीवन में, उसके वैल्यू सिस्टम्स में, उसके कल्चर में, उसके व्यवहार में क्या क्या ला सका हूँ, इसके बारे में अंदाज लगाना मुश्किल. इसका अंदाज 20 साल बाद ही पता चलता है कि आपने जो आज कंट्रीब्यूट किया है. इसलिए टीचर्स के लिए हमेशा चैलेंज रहेगा. इसलिए द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट वी नीड टू हैव अंडरस्टैंड इज setting aside the technology and various ways, teachers need to have value systems that they are going to build nation, and a great huge responsibility lies with them. Yet another thing which comes to my mind is when we are talking about ranking world 100 universities, that kind of thing. जहां तक इंडिया का सवाल है, हर चीज एक परिवेश में देखने का प्रयास होना चाहिए. इंडिया में इतने पॉपुलेशन है, यूथ का इतना ज्यादा पॉपुलेशन है जिनको एजुकेट करना है, लिटरेट ही नहीं एजुकेट करना है, तो थोड़ी समस्या तो हमारे साथ हो ही जाती है. जहां तक ग्रेजुएशन लेवल की बात है, वहां तक तो टीचर्स में बहुत रिसर्च एबिलिटीज भी नहीं होती हैं और बहुत रिसर्च भी नहीं कर पाते हैं और फंड भी अवेलेबल नहीं होते. Or postgraduate, certainly you need a lot of funds for doing a quality research, which India has not been able to do, or in the past it has not. But at least we have thought about it, doing it in the future with the new education policy. लेकिन एक चीज हमेशा याद रखें, हम जो मैं फील करता हूं कि ये जो पैरामीटर्स ऑफ रैंकिंग भी हैं वो हमने नहीं सेट किए हैं और इंडिया के आधार पर सेट नहीं हुए हैं, ये वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड ने सेट किए। हमारे यहाँ एक से एक अच्छे शिक्षक होंगे जो अच्छे अच्छे स्टूडेंट्स को पैदा भी करते हैं और अच्छे स्टूडेंट्स निकलते भी हैं, लेकिन शायद वो रैंकिंग के पैरामीटर में नहीं आ पाते हैं। इसलिए we need to be strong enough in our education system so that we can also dictate the terms and parameters as far as ranking goes. It cannot be absolute that someone else sets ranking for me and then we have got wonderful teachers and it is something like this कि वही सारे ढंग के लड़के एक साथ पढ़े और एक ही एग्जाम से सबको आंक दे, ये बात नहीं होनी चाहिए। एजुकेशन नेशन के अपने पर्सपेक्टिव्स में भी होना चाहिए, इसलिए मुझे बहुत रैंकिंग की चिंता नहीं है। जहां तक टेक्नोलॉजी की बात की है, अनुभूति जी ने, बहुत अच्छा लगा मुझे ये सुन करके, और उन्होंने ये भी कहा कि सिक्योरिटी एंड प्राइवेसी की बात है। टेक्नोलॉजी कहां तक बढ़े, आप तो मीडिया के हैं और हम सब मीडिया के हैं। टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ दिक्कत अब ये हो रही है कि नाउ दे आर गैदरिंग इंफॉर्मेशन अंडर आवर स्किन ऑल्सो। नाउ अदर्स वुड नो कि व्हाट डिजीज डू आई हैव, prior to that I know that what disease do I suffer from because of the technology. Very good. But we are also getting into a situation, we are trying to find out the emotions of an individual. Now, when you start finding out emotions of an individual, then it becomes dangerous. Many people sitting here may be wanting to go, but if I, through technology, start understanding that they want to go or they want to stay back, would be dangerous and not appropriate. That is where probably we need to be more careful about security and pushing technology to an extent where it leaves you human rather than it makes you a technology or it makes you an instrument. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful session and wonderful learning for me from all the three speakers and the participants.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to read one message which was received by Rakshak Jain. Happy Teachers' Day to you all, especially our director, Professor J.B. Nadda sir, for guiding us, for mentoring us, and for leading our organization so well with great wisdom. When we talk about educational, imparting, and pedagogy, we find that our pedagogical practices are still at first industrial era, while we have reached to fourth industrial era of revolution. We still rely on teacher-centric, expository kind of passive teaching. Hopefully, with the new education policy, we will also reach to fourth industrial era in terms of pedagogical practices and adopt more open and learner-centric approaches of teaching. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to request Gitanjali Singh to kindly propose vote of thanks.
First and foremost, my sincere thanks are due to Professor Nadda, Director CEC.
Let us give a big round of applause for Dr. Nadda. Renee, honestly, brilliant.
He has been the inspiration behind organizing this webinar. Without his support and guidance, this event would not have been possible. Thank you, sir. I extend a sincere thanks to all our speakers, Professor Ashok Ogra, Professor K.G. Suresh, Professor Anubhuti Yadav, for sharing with us their expertise and valuable views on this new National Education Policy 2020. My heartfelt thanks are due to all the participants in the webinar, the academicians who have always been contributing in all the endeavors of creating the educational content with CEC. We thank you all very much. I would like to thank Dr. Sunil Mehru for giving us his guidance at every step in organizing this webinar. My sincere thanks are also due to my colleagues in CEC in the various units, namely the multimedia unit, the production unit, the technical unit, research, administration, and accounts. I thank you all once again for participating so enthusiastically in this webinar and making it successful. So now let us all stand for the national anthem. Thank you all.